Welcome to the Abstract Conversations podcast, where complexity meets clarity, as we bring you approachable conversations with the industry's leading founders, innovators, and thought leaders. I'm your host, Burnt Banksy, founder of Burnt, the core contributor to XION, the generalized abstraction layer. Today we have Chen joining us, the founder and CEO of Injective Labs, the core contributor to the Injective blockchain. Eric, welcome to the podcast. You are the very first guest on Abstracted Conversations. How are you today?
Good. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. How's your day going so far?
Been going great.
Oh, we love to hear that. We love to hear that. All right. I mean, let's give the people what they want. Let's jump in with the questions. Can you give a little background on, for the people, the very few people who haven't heard about you, a little who you are, what Injective is?
Yeah, this is Eric Chen, co-founder and CEO of Injective Labs. Injective Labs is a core contributor to Injective, the blockchain ecosystem. And Injective is a sector-specific Layer 1 blockchain built for finance. It's basically this open, interoperable Layer 1 blockchain that can power the next generation of DeFi applications. Some basic examples are like decentralized spot and derivatives exchanges, prediction markets, lending protocols, and much more.
And so how long have you been with Injective for?
I think I started Injective Labs back in 2018, roughly October or August of 2018, and been at it since then.
Can you tell the people back home the founding story?
Yeah, I think initially I was mainly working on research. There was this very exciting paper around this cryptographic primitive called verifiable delay function. Initially, I was looking into some of the potential candidates to fit this class of primitive. But I was kind of in over my head, and then a lot of other, much more talented and much more experienced students and professors have come up with very compelling candidates. And I decided to, shift gears and look into applications of verifiable delay function, because in the original paper, they only mentioned, like a verifiable and trusted lottery system, and some potential blockchain on Oracle application on like Oracle designs and stuff like that, or random oracles. And to me, that just seems like some very basic kind of potential application examples for something so disruptive. And the first thing I thought about was applying that towards removing and resolving like the front-running, race condition issues within decentralized exchanges, which candidate is arguably the most practical or the best to be the first one to be implemented and go into production. But I think everyone certainly underestimated how long it's going to take. And last I checked, to this day, like since 2018, there still hasn't been really like a production ready implementation of VDF. And as a result, interestingly, ETH2 was utilizing VDF, I think, for a randomness beacon, etc. But they ended up adopting RANDAO, last I checked, for their actual implementation, because it was taking too long for kind of like a production ready VDF to be released or to be finished. And we quickly realized that, and basically came to a conclusion that, for now, it's best for us to not go down this approach of implementing or utilizing, this primitive that has, like a very rough chance of getting into production and having like a, ready to use, setup. So we decided to, kind of move away from that. So essentially, very soon we, discovered Tendermint chain and realized kind of out of box, there's a lot of benefit from, using it. And then like later on, we also realized that they're also, building it further into, what is now, Cosmos. And over time, we also noticed that basically like things that comes out of the box from Cosmos SDK was super convenient for a lot of stuff that we would have had to build from scratch, but at the same time, overlaps to what every single L1 needs to build from scratch. Um, and that ends up being the definitive approach that we decided to go down, and kind of became what Injective is today. And also one interesting deviation from the paper is that it assumed like a settlement of trades and basically settlement of positions to be done on Ethereum. And one of the biggest I think interesting point was that over time we realized that the turnaround for updating position and settling, unless you're going with like an optimistic structure, which requires a very definitive ordering of settlement and clearing to be established by the matching layer. Basically, that is just as bad as having like a fully on-chain order book on top of Ethereum from like a user experience, tossing aside gas fee, of course.
Yeah, of course. And just kind of going back to the original, kind of the VDF concepts, do you see, at least in whether it be near or far future, any real applications of VDFs? And if so, what do you think's holding back, production ready applications for it?
No, I think it's just like, developing a new primitive or implementing like a candidate, especially because, VDF isn't like a necessarily like a pure software
Hmm.
implementation, but rather, it's also a hardware implementation in order for, this process to be, secure. But basically the VDF computation part, and verification part, you need to make sure that, there is kind of like a equilibrium of clock speed where someone can't just go out and develop a significantly faster processor or clock that's significantly better optimized than any other like participants within this process. And that is obviously very difficult because coming up with the proper parameterization that's secure, that takes a few years within cryptography. Coming up with the implementation that's secure and safe, that probably takes a bit more. And then coming up with a hardware FPGA implementation that's safe, secure, and well implemented, that adds a bit more as well. So I think that is the main blocker. It's not necessarily that there's not enough promise or
Hmm.
there's not enough demand. Rather, like the development of these type of things just take very long. Just like the case for elliptic curve signature and all those shot candidates.
Nice. No, I mean, that's a very interesting approach. I definitely do remember, I think, we call it 2017, I believe. You couldn't really go anywhere without seeing VDF in a white paper. So, and it's funny to see a lot of the projects that were kind of building on it kind of quickly realize the same, kind of come to the same conclusions as you. What made you look at, building an ecosystem rather than continuing to focus on, say, like maybe a singular killer product? What drew you to this ecosystem approach that we're seeing Injective succeed with so much now?
Yeah, I think that was always the idea since the beginning. It's meant to be this infrastructure that's open and permissionless. Um, I think what really changed during the process of building and contributing to the injective chain and you know building a lot of different types of application is that it's really like the speed of it. Like we were probably envisioning like, hey, like, us labs, we develop a few applications, as like this showcase, or this flagship on top of the injective chain. And it gets, a decent amount of adoption. And, it kind of like develops like a very strong, user base and flow, in of itself. And then as a result, there's going to be, more and more developers building, surrounding applications or, you know, uh, um, ancillary applications. alongside these type of, more like quote unquote like cornerstone apps. But what ends up happening really is, I think for starters, like, the entire infrastructure is meant to be, composable. It's meant to be fully on chain. And the advantage of being fully on chain is, very, very apparent, since the very, very beginning. But at the same time, we realize that, for, let's say, Helix app to grow, for, a lot of these other applications to grow, you'd really have to ensure that all these, kind of like offerings, all these applications are ready much earlier on than you would expect. Because in like a happy path, Helix would get to, billions of dollars in volume per day plus millions of users. And then, more and more, kind of application starts popping up, more and more, protocol starts coming out that's complementary to Helix app, or offering like a different twist to Helix. But in reality, what ended up happening was that, in order for Helix to really, really grow, because, Helix is meant to be kind of like this rudimentary or basic showcase of the capabilities of the injective chain. Helix itself doesn't really have a lot of, complex smart contracts, or, kind of like layers and layers of kind of parameterization and application on top of what's offered in the most native way on top of Injective. And as a result, basically, for Helix to really showcase and stand out against any other like centralized exchange that offers spots, perpetual, different types of derivatives, it needs to be extremely palpable to users. Like, oh, like I can access to these applications that are not available on top of these centralized exchanges, on top of these traditional platforms I'm used to. So this is like a must-have, or this is a very, very solid benefit for me to onboard to a platform. And then on top of that, it's like, oh, like there's new and newer and newer features are coming out every single day that makes it more and more of a reason for me to onboard to Helix or onboard to other injective exchange applications. And that, becomes kind of like the more sensible way to grow the Helix application, as well as the injective ecosystem.
Nice, nice. I love that. And you guys have, you have all been doing such an amazing job at doing that. Kind of taking, a step back, and we've kind of gone through the life cycle of Injective, from the start of the white paper, which you and Albert, as I'm looking right now, co-wrote, to where you are now, which I assume is obviously much bigger of a team than you and Albert. You've obviously worn a lot of hats as a CEO. I guess the question here is, as you've seen, a lot of product market fit and a lot of growth, what do you see as your job as the CEO now?
That's very hard to say. So supposedly, the basic requirement, or kind of like the fundamental responsibility would be making quality decisions, resolving, kind of like different types of complicated or kind of ambivalent scenarios, and reaching a consensus, or being the deciding vote on different types of problems, or being the deciding vote on like the best solution. But at the same time, you can't really deterministically compare like, oh, like this solution is probably better than the other one. It's really about making these snap judgments based on limited data, because you don't really have time to spend a crap load of time to research and coming up with the data, analyzing and stuff like that. So I think that is like the most basic one. It's like being the deciding vote, and also making the right call. But in reality, I would say like 20-30% is monitoring, managing, giving them advice, because I've probably done their job before, and I also have like a kind of like a more macro context on all things. And then I would say like another 30-40% of the time is kind of being like stepping in to kind of expand the bandwidth of a certain task, certain vertical, or helping with increasing productivity on a certain place that needs help. And then the last bit would be just being on top of things, being on top of uh, new innovations, new papers, new ideas, so that you can always be able to, I would say, make the best quality decision.
Nice. That's very interesting. How did you I guess kind of a two-part question, how did you manage that change that most CEOs go through from being this individual contributor to this more managerial role? And then, any tips for people going through the same?
That's very hard to say, man, because every single situation is very different, even within the same industry, within the same vertical, with very similar offering. Um, how you go about, switching gears from being the executor into the overseer or the manager, um, being able to trust, you kind of giving away this execution process to someone that's not you, and not not overly like managing it, not micromanaging it. I let them to really like have a chance to be at their maximum productivity, to kind of do the right things, but at the same time being able to guide them, and give them like kind of context on big picture. Because really, like, there's two things, right? I think what's different about, I would say, like, Injective is that, at least, for Injective Labs, is early days, is that there just, there just weren't that many hands. It's really just two people. And I kind of, ironically covered, you know, the, the gap between, like I kind of covered a, you know, lower end spectrum, which is, more on the research side, on the mechanism protocol design, and anything like cryptography related. But at the same time, I also do relatively high level side, like BD, marketing, ops, yada yada yada, and anything that comes beyond implementation. So with this broad spectrum of coverage, where on the very very end, it's very very how do I say, low level theoretical, and on the other end, it's very much a high level. You kind of get your mental muscle stretched, and you kind of understand like kind of every single layer of the process within like an organization. You kind of have to do the work of every single vertical within an org. It's not exactly the most immediate thing. It's like, oh, like I should probably go to someone to execute like a marketing idea, or I probably should go to a marketing person to say like, oh, like I want to do this. What is the best plan for it? You kind of start developing a habit of like, okay, like I have this idea. Here's how I would do in marketing. Here's how I would do from like a product specing design. Here's what I would do from like all the way down to like mechanism design and stuff like that. And that is really very much of a double-edged sword, because yeah, like you've been there for like most of the things are being done by members of the team. Um, you also slowly start to realize that they can probably do a better job because they have more mental dedication, and like uh, they have definitely a lot more experience on that specific vertical than I do. But at the same time, what they're missing is like the macro context, right? Why is it relevant to other people? like why is this important, or um, what is this used for, and allow them to alongside to like not doing it in like a tone deaf way or not deviating for the actual expectation of the project or task itself. Um, so yeah, like over time, it's probably because of that, kind of like objective understanding of the limitations of my capability, but at the same time, understand, having like a practical, um, like having practical experience of actually doing similar tasks or, the same task before on like most of the verticals that kind of made me, more naturally, willing to step back and, kind of like give away or like, not overly micromanage, etc.
Nice. Was that difficult to, because Injective's your baby, right? So I have to imagine it was in some ways difficult to step back, right, and to let other people kind of fill in your shortcomings. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Um, yeah, I think this is still like, certainly like an ongoing thing. I feel like, oftentimes I would certainly like, be kind of like, overly worrisome about, how they go about doing things, whether it's, what are my expectation or like, what are they, deviated significantly from it to a point where, a lot of work is wasted and stuff like that. It's ongoing. I still need to, you know, improve upon it. And also like, obviously on a, management side and, working with, so many team members, uh, I am so far from, what I would consider doing a good job. So yeah, no, like, it, I feel like, in the foreseeable future, this will never end.
Yeah, I figured, but you always gotta ask, right? Is there, I guess even kind of stepping more outside to more of a macro, I guess, um, you know, as you had kind of mentioned, right, you really tended towards VDF, you really tended towards cryptography, and then that obviously brought you into a natural interest in crypto. How, after being in crypto for so many years, I guess how do you like it, right? Well, what are the pros? What are the cons? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been in any other really like industry for a long time compared to crypto, so there's no reference point. So I feel like at this point I wouldn't get a job at any other place.
Well, at this point, you're
So I
stuck.
really don't. Yeah, I really don't really have a choice. So no matter what I think, whether it's good or bad, there's no way to find out whether that, is an apt, opinion. Like, oh,
Yeah,
like,
of course.
crypto is, very BS. There's, a lot of, scams and there's a lot of, like, fraudulent activity. Apparently, like, oh, like, like 99.99% of, all of, everything in this space are all used for like terrorist financing and stuff like that, right? And then,
Yeah, we see,
seeing
like
that
we
kind of
wouldn't
like,
say that.
yeah, but like seeing that type of public opinion in this
Yeah.
space, and then hear stories about like other industries. You hear stories about like how other verticals, even outside of tech or finance, completely probably like unrelated industries. It rhymes a lot. It's just that
Hmm.
perhaps for like this space, because of like the volatility of things, because of the palpable value or like the palpable volatility in the representation of like price fluctuation and stuff like that,
Hmm.
it really gets probably augmented as a result, um, from like public perception, from like how people outside of the industry view the space.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's hard to say. Like the pros of this, the pros of being here, I feel like it's like like I found out that I'm pretty decent at it early on when I first learned about it. I'm I'm able to like grasp the concept and, progress, quicker than an average day person on it, when I was, in high school or college. And, I realized that I can, be on like a level playing field. At least I thought so. Be on a level playing field against, veterans, in the space, relatively quickly, or get close to it relatively quicker than, in a lot of the other subjects. And yeah, so it's, finding the bliss, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would say like the con is like, yeah, I feel like the space is extremely fast moving, um, way, way faster moving than any other industry. And that's probably because of, just how like kind of like financialized it is and, how, in a sense, like globalized in this, in a way. But more importantly, there's no like, entry cost, right? It's really, you implement a smart contract, you, uh, spend some time like, developing it, and then you spend, some ETH, especially it's way cheaper back in DFL, to deploy a contract. And now you have a protocol that can later on be worth like, $60 billion, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is probably kind of a con because it creates a lot of, noise in the industry. And more importantly, it's like, it goes through too rapid of, filtering and, natural like gatekeeping slash hierarchy
Hmm.
where it actually kind of ends up being, kind of like a inefficient, environment.
Yeah. No, I always found it funny, which is just like, a lot of crypto's main focus is just like pure trustlessness, yet it's one of the least trusted industries in the world. And I find it very funny that the dynamic that kind of spawned out of it. I mean, would you say it's fun? Do you have fun? Do you enjoy what you do?
Yeah, I love it.
Awesome. Would you change anything?
Um, not really.
All right.
I don't
That's
think
awesome.
of one.
Yeah, try to think of one. It could be at any
But
point
would
in
I?
time.
But you mean change the career or the industry?
No, anything about crypto. We're already past you. You're stuck in crypto. So there's no, I mean, you really
Yeah,
can't do anything about that.
industry. Yeah, I mean, like, there's definitely a very, very long wish list on, what you can do or like what the industry can change to, progress better, progress, forward better. Um, yeah, so that's a
Yeah,
much
that,
more
we'll
different
save that for
topic.
podcast number two. That's awesome. So I guess, as it kind of relates to Injective, I don't know if we can speak on specific ecosystem projects, but anything that you want to kind of shine a light on as it comes to whether it be Helix or, I've done kind of some of my research, but anything you want to talk about there specifically?
Yeah, I think Talos is very fun. It's certainly one of those like unexpected, um,
And which is Talus for the
success
people
within
at
the,
home?
Injective ecosystem. It's an NFT marketplace on top of, Injective.
Oh, nice.
Because, like I mentioned before, Injective is a blockchain that has, like functionally speaking, is finance focused. It has a very, very bias, very, very heavy bias towards, financial applications, anything, finance related or exchange related, or, Oracle related. So from like a functional standpoint, it doesn't make a terrible amount of sense, to have a, flourishing NFT ecosystem. If you just, uh, think about like, what NFTs are like typically used for, or like, where it's typically used, for. And for some reason, I think it's, unexpected, but also kind of in hindsight, you can understand why. Like, a lot of the community members within the Injective ecosystem, just really, really enjoys, having a native, NFT ecosystem and propel the success of, Talus as the, Injective, NFT marketplace. And I think this probably like signaled a very significant shift in my personal mindset, about trying to compete on different application verticals. It's it's kind of almost like a hidden alpha, or there's one weird trick where if you design something to be a lot more open, to be a lot more modular, um, to be a lot more permissionless and interoperable in a sense, or composable to be accurate, you just might have a lot of unexpected and accidental success, because you enable the possibility of your application, of your protocol, uh, you know, being open to developers that have some very interesting or very creative use cases or verticals, and you as like a single mind, essentially, simply over time cannot compete against thousands and thousands of developers and builders.
Eric, I want to thank you for your time today. I also want to thank the listeners for tuning in. Please subscribe as we host more exciting conversations with leading figures in the industry.